You're looking for answers, too.
The beginning of season 9 was another great drama behind the scenes because once again it was not clear whether the end of season 8 would be the end of the television series.
Season 9 was an exciting season to be going into because we were, in a sense, starting anew. 2 new agents were running the X-Files office.
David Duchovny was not available, but Gillian Anderson was, but we all knew that was going to be her last year. It was the end of her contract, and she intended on moving on. So we kind of felt this is a new series, this is a new beginning. So there was a lot of talk of where the mythology should go.
In terms of whether the show had creative vitality, I felt no hesitation like I had at the beginning of season 8. I felt that Robert Patrick was great, and we still had Gillian Anderson, and Annabeth Gish was going to be great.
We wanted to add a love interest for Annabeth's character.
We needed to know more about who she was. So that led to the creation of the Brad Fulmer character, played by Carrie Elways.
Monica, it's me. Did I wake you?
Brad? No, I'm awake.
He's so much different than Doggett. He's so much different than Mulder. He is a person that is, physically attractive, terrific actor, and has a kind of quality that we saw we could use, which was, I don't want to say devious, but there is something sort of going on behind Carrie's eyes.
I just knew right away that that was something I wanted to do. And so subsequently I found out from Chris that he'd pretty much written the part for me.
From the start, we knew we wanted someone who was basically anti-Doggett. Carrie embodied that perfectly.
For an Ivy League kind of polished, well-dressed, slick careerist.
It makes a great conflict, especially when they have feelings for the same woman.
He's chasing after a girl and he wants some unfinished questions answered.
You used to ask me to close the door at work back in New York.
Is that all you called me here for, Assistant Director?
He's not all bad, and he is capable of doing the right thing. And indeed, in episode 2, Nothing Important Happened Today, he does do the right thing. He does help out at a critical moment.
Don't get me wrong. I'm a friend of the X-Files. Kind of a comfort having you down there.
When Chris came back, one of his first ideas was to bring in Lucy Lawless, which was great.
I'd seen her at a couple different functions, and she had come to me and told me she was a fan of the show. So when we approached her, she was game. She was a good sport. We had a very physical role for her.
That's such a new type of character for the X-Files to encounter, a female super soldier.
She's hot stuff, so it was good to be able to put her into the show and use her through the course of this two-parter.
She was a lot of fun to work with. She's got a great sense of humor, and obviously she knows what she's doing, and she's having a lot of fun. I think she thought we all took it a little bit too serious, but then again, we weren't making Xena, we were making the X-Files.
And she was blown away because she said, I'll never forget, we were shooting in a bar, and I said, well, we got to do it this way. I got to do this with that line and do this with this line. And she said to the guest star, she said, boy, it was never this detailed when we did Xena. I just kind of rode the horse in and screamed and cut somebody's head off, and that was a print.
You didn't trust me. There was a lot of underwater work in the season opener, and underwater work is very time-consuming and it's very challenging. And the actors, both Robert Patrick and Lucy Lawless, were incredible.
This woman was a real trooper. I mean, we had her in this car. We had her seat belted into a car, 13 feet underwater. And we had her with a hookah that she'd breathe through. And we'd roll the camera, and the stunt guys would take the hookah away from her. And she'd sit there for 40, 45 seconds without breathing, obviously. And we'd cut, and she'd just raise her hand, they'd bring her the hookah. She never once complained. She's pulling Robert down by the feet, and we had her on a wire rig. We pulled her down into 19 feet of water.
We shot part of the underwater footage in a tank at Universal, and then we had to find a facility that we could bring in huge vats of water, for lack of a better explanation, that looked like a water filtration plant.
It was an electrical facility, and there we are at the Tech Scout realizing that we have an amazing amount of voltage going through this place, and we're bringing in 3 swimming pools.
They were only 4 feet deep, and we had, had to have Lucy in them, and Lucy's like 6 feet tall anyhow. And so she was down on her knees. It was really hard to get her, just her eyes above water.
It was not so much hiding what we weren't supposed to see as hiding the fact that she was wearing a bathing suit, because it was wrinkling and her body was being pushed on in ways that a naked body would not be. But as has happened so many times in the past, shadows are your friend on the X-Files. And by manipulating shadows and generating shadows, it was kind of a little shadow fan dance.
I knew Demonicus was going to be the first standalone of the season, and it really had to set up how the show was going to work now.
When I was alone in that house this morning, I had the strong feeling I was in the presence of evil.
So I needed to place Scully at Quantico for the first time, which was actually a lecture hall at UCLA. I needed to show how Doggett and Reyes worked together.
Look, Monica, the only reason we were called in on this thing is you've investigated hundreds of these kinds of cases.
I really wanted a character who could help not just tell us again what the X-Files are in the 9th season of the show, but tell us something about who Doggett, Reyes, and Scully are. And that just sort of led naturally to the Cobalt character played by James Remar, who is the devil, in a cell. I was looking into murderers, and there was a famous one named Carol Chessman, and I thought, oh, Chessman. And I realized suddenly that's it. It's a game, it's a chessboard, there's moves and counter moves, and really the whole thing is plotted that way.
The whispering sounds were a combination of the Catholic Mass and the Satanic Mass played backwards at different whisper levels, and that's what's coming out of this man's mouth, and that's what he is hearing.
I actually had not intended to have that many shots of Cobalt throwing up, but the editor, Chris Cook, cut it that way. It just made me laugh. It was so completely over the top.
The tubes, they had to be flat under the appliance, and the actor had to have his mouth open the whole time. He couldn't close his mouth underneath it. So it was very, very hard and very difficult for the actor. But he only had to keep it on about 2 hours.
So many effects that benefit from being a combination, a hybrid, where you get the best of both worlds.
Physical effects mixed the goo and pumped the actual spray.
A little bit of makeup, a little bit of practical effects, a little bit of digital stuff. And what we do is just we remove the tube.
With John Doggett and Monica Reyes being in charge of the X-Files, we knew we needed to give somebody a drive.
I just know I need to solve this. And I'd appreciate your help.
Frank Spotnitz was interested in taking Monica Reyes' character in sort of a darker, giving her some darkness to play.
Do you believe in second chances, Dana? A chance to correct the mistakes we make in our lives?
You mean in a future life?
She has a past life that has really somber, terrible overtones.
Was she a good person or a bad person? Did she fight evil, or did she let evil happen?
However you did it, however you knew what you know, what matters here is you saved a woman's life.
We had to build a refrigeration unit the size of a warehouse.
It was an old dairy. The special effects guys went in and they put up all the rails and all the hooks. And we brought in, I think it was 300 slaughtered pigs, and then we had like 200 rubber pigs.
The makeup job was unbelievable. The idea of making it still look moist as it would be if your skin was taken off and there's still that sclera and the veins are still running.
We had over 200 prosthetic pieces on these guys.
Flat sheets of muscles, and they would wrap around the various parts of the actors.
We laid the veins all over them. Then we took a lot of time with our highlight and shadow to really emphasize certain parts of the muscles and stuff, and then we kind of made them all shiny.
And because we applied a lot of blood on it and a lot of veins, we could blend those pieces easily.
And there was 7 makeup artists working for 7 hours on each person. and that one for 10 days.
Well, Tom Schnoz, I thought, wrote a great script, and of course the flies were very memorable.
You investigate the unexplained. How about you explain it to me?
There were a few flies that were practical just to establish on the dead victim's face, and then the rest of the flies swarming around were all generated CG.
Flocking behavior, where you make a group of objects fly around, sort of tracking with each other, but not. You know, it's like it allows us to make flocks of birds or flocks of insects.
So the eye is opened by a cable, and the flies actually fly out of the eyes.
They put him in a suit that was half made of rubber flies and half kept his face open. So he had him in this chair, and he set up 2 cameras on him, turned on the lights, and he said, "Hank, you ready?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm ready." And we dumped about 30,000 flies on him.
It was my first solo episode of season 9, and I had an idea that I fiddled with for months on end, and it was the idea of a memory vampire, a man who could steal someone's memories, suck them right out of their head, and make them his own. That was an idea of Frank Spotnitz's, to set it in Mexico and to center it more on Agent Doggett, and once we had that, it actually went together fairly easily. Our director of photography, Bill Rowe, and his crew did a wonderful job. Bill, as always, put his own spin on it. I said to him, let's try for traffic, and he gave us one better.
For me, it was really a great show. I mean, we did a lot of testing before. We ended up shooting things like, you know, the exteriors like 3-4 stops over, what you should shoot it at, really washed out. And then inside it was really dark, so we had this huge contrast of lighting. You know, it was real dark and warm and brown, and when you go inside, you can barely see things, you know, but when you're outside, it's just blaring.
To put that much grit and earth into it is what sells the intensity of what he was going through as a character trying to come up with his identity again. We got to take Mulder's apartment set and coat it with plaster. That made it go into the Deep Six files. You would never know it was ever Mulder's. That was the hotel that John went to. It was very creative and very rewarding for us as an art department to create the complete total look of being in another culture.
One of my favorite shots is when the glass of that front end of that bus was really dense, and so the reflections like doubled outside. So you can actually see them inside and really see them great outside.
It's a testament to how good our crew is and what a wonderful job our director, Michelle McLaren, did, because that bus was anything but exciting when it crashed.
Well, we got out there to see the test, to see this bus, and so we're all kind of waiting, and you know, I yelled action.
You hear it going, and it's backing up and backing up and backing up.
We had 9 cameras set up, and we had all these stunt guys ready to jump out of the way.
You're looking at your watch and it's backing up.
They're firing guns, and then the bus comes smashing through, and they have to leap out. We undercranked some of the cameras so that we could make it look like it went a little bit faster than it did.
Hits this big steel ramp they had buried, and so it's clunk, falls over. Smoke and mirrors. You could have stood there and had a sandwich while that thing was backing up. It was so slow.
It's a very ambitious, very interesting, beautiful kind of story that only Chris could have written and directed.
2 clowns and a man with a crown. I'll try your luck, sir. Robert Patrick and I worked together on a movie called Striptease, which I think I was in a different movie.
I actually had talked to Bert, and he told me he'd like to do one, and I called Chris, so I am going to take credit for it.
I said, in passing, I'd love to do the show.
And he said, okay, let me think about writing something good.
So much time went by that I completely forgot about it.
You know, I didn't hear anything for a while, and I thought, well, I wonder if that's going to happen.
And then out of the blue, I heard from Chris Carter.
As a young man, he meant something to me, and here was a chance to work with him. The whole experience was surreal. I took the script and the opportunity and presented it to him, and, you know, lo and behold, he says yes.
Checkers. But checkers are in the trunk, if either of you play.
Sir, does it look like we're here to play checkers?
No. You cut to this Cadillac trunk, which you could, you know, Joel Grey could live there and have 2 or 3 children. And there are 1,000 CDs in there, just thrown in, and on top, there's no order, they're just thrown in there. And it was absolutely right, instead of them being in some sort of perfect order, that they were just there, and he could just grab one, and they were all totally different, I'm sure, and they all just gave him joy. I love it. The classics, of course. Mozart, Bach, the earlier jazz, Louis Armstrong, Sinatra, doo-wop, Elvis, marching band.
Sir, enough.
Don't get me wrong. I love all music, but I prefer the stuff that lasts. There's a line I loved in where I say, would you like one? Because I can always make more. You like them? Keep them. Thanks to the wondrous world of digital technology, I can always make more.
What time is your friend coming?
Soon. Well, I was so right for the character. I never would have pictured. I can't play anything any better than what I played.
Something had changed. Frank and I spoke very seriously about bringing the show to an end.
To say goodbye and to put an ending on something that's been such a big part of all of our lives.
We both discussed it and decided it was probably time to go.
What's kind of nice about the fact that Chris made the announcement in January is that we had time to wrap our minds around the end and plan for it and give all of the characters their due.
What's left for us on the X-Files?
We came to this job to give it our best. It's the way we're going to leave.
It was strange to be writing these things, knowing that it was the last time we'd see Scully doing certain things, it was the last time we'd see Mulder saying certain things.
Answer some questions, but really, more than answer questions, give meaning to what had happened before, and then give closure.
The final episode was strange for a number of reasons, because you're writing, it's the end. You don't get another chance. You better put everything you've wanted to put into the episode.
This is about everything we've worked for 9 years. The truth that we both sacrificed so much to uncover and to expose.
To wrap up a series, we had to have David back. And he was glad to be back, I think. I could see it in his eyes.
I smelled you coming, Clarice.
Work was so hard, there was so much to do, it was a demanding schedule. I broke my arm during the course of the filming.
Each day that the show would go on, you'd find you were saying goodbye to yet another actor.
It was powerful for us, I guess in a way that all of these final episodes were powerful for us because we knew we were saying goodbye.
I can't do this. Who authorized this?
I'm going to find out.
Skinner.
They've packed up the X-Files.
I know. It's out of control.
There were things to distract us from what was really going on, which is that we were, the band was breaking up.
Emotionally, it started to catch up with all of us, I think.
You don't care what these people have sacrificed over the last 9 years, what's been lost to their cause.
David had his final scene with the lone gunman.
Hey, Hotshot. You might have the common courtesy of doing your business there downwind.
Oh, boy. Why don't you just finish draining the little lizard and then we'll talk.
And Jillian, they had their final scene together. It was funny. It was not like in a sacred place, like a sacred X-Files place. It was on the side of a road somewhere in the desert. And basically, everyone said goodbye. This was it. This was, their last work they were going to do on the series. And then they went off, and then we went back to do this big explosion. And when the explosion went up and the cameras had rolled, and we looked at the replay of it, and we realized we had gotten what we wanted to get and more. Basically, they yelled, "That's a wrap," and someone handed me a champagne bottle, and I said, "There's just one thing I want to say," and I, with a champagne bottle in my hand, I said, "Woohoo!" The end.
Do you believe in the existence of extraterrestrials?